Emerging in the 1990s, the new queer movement challenged heteronormative storylines in the mainstream cinema. B. Ruby Rich claims that new queer cinema signaled the emergence of a politically engaged and socially radical queer aesthetic within the context of American independent film. The movement aimed to challenge mainstream cinema's conventions and values by highlighting the complexities of LGBT perspectives. The filmmakers active in the movement, according to Rich, revised, refashioned, and rethought the forms and genres of cinema to reflect the diversity and depth within the culture. Queer filmmakers such as Todd Haynes, Greg Araki, and Gus Van Sant paved the way within the new queer movement. Todd Haynes' Poison explored the complexity and nuance of queer relationships. Greg Araki's The Living End challenged the conventional representation of AIDS in cinema, and Gus Van Sant's My Own Private Idaho depicted the lives of two male hustlers while challenging the heteronormative road genre. Poison, directed by Todd Haynes, is considered to be the beginning of the new queer cinema movement. Poison is an anthology that explores topics within the LGBT community, and these topics being homosexuality, violence, and AIDS. This paved the way for a more honest and authentic representation of queer experiences within film. Haynes has acknowledged the significance of the new queer movement and its influence on Poison. He commented in an interview with Film Comment, "I think that the new queer cinema movement was really important because it opened up the possibility of a different kind of expression, a different kind of storytelling." Haynes has recognized that the movement enabled filmmakers to experiment with new forms of representation and to question cultural conventions and expectations. The first storyline, Hero, follows 7-year-old Richie who shoots his abusive father and then flies away. Notably, the story of Hero is told in the style of an episode of a tabloid news magazine. It explores the experiences of queer desire and its suppression by the mainstream society. As scholar Emmanuel Levy notes, Haynes uses the science fiction genre to depict the fear, anxiety, and sexual confusion that beset a young boy growing up gay in a repressive homophobic environment. This is exemplified in the film's use of B-movie conventions, which highlights the otherness and alienation experienced by queer individuals. The second story, Horror, is told through the style of a 1960s horror film, and follows a scientist who isolates the elixir of human sexuality, and after drinking it, is transformed into a hideous, murdering leper. The genre horror uses conventions to highlight fear about the unknown and familiar. The abject is what threatens identity and order, what disturbs the border between self and other human and non-human, and that which is deemed acceptable and unacceptable. Grieven, 2004. Sue Short notes that the horror genre conventions such as the unknown, the monstrous, and the supernatural are used to articulate anxieties about race, gender, sexuality, and other forms of difference. Through its use of genre conventions and a nuanced exploration, horror offers a powerful critique of societal norms. The final storyline, Homo, is the story of a prisoner, John Broome, who finds himself attracted to another prisoner, Jack Bolton, whom he had known and humiliated as a youth in a juvenile facility. Homo utilizes a non-linear narrative alongside experimental film techniques, challenging the traditional representation of queer identity and desire. In its use of the non-linear, Homo refuses to give primacy to traditional narrative, suggesting that queer desire cannot be reduced to conventional storytelling. Homeland, 1995. Utilizing these experimental techniques, Haynes challenges traditional narrative structures and representations of identity. Alice T. Friedman defines this movement as characterized by its critique of traditional sexual and gender norms, revisionist and experimental treatment of the narrative form, and attention to the margins of society and culture. The Living End, directed by Greg Araki, is a notable example of the new queer cinema's movements and its characteristics and critiques. Like many of Araki's films, The Living End embodies a nihilistic tone with explicit depictions of drugs, violence, and sex. This was a departure from the sanitized portrayals of the LGBT people in mainstream Hollywood at the time, which tended to shy away from depicting their experiences authentically. The Living End rejects societal norms and assimilation into mainstream media, promoting a non-conformist attitude that is empowering rather than self-destruction. Emmanuel Levy notes, Araki's vision of gay culture is independent and defiant and anti-mainstream, yet self-affirming and life-affirming. and Araki's portrayal of Luke and John's relationship and their experiences with HIV or AIDS is significant in the context of the new queer movement. While HIV or AIDS was a prevalent issue in the LGBT community, the mainstream often sensationalized the disease. The Living End portrays the disease in a realistic and compassionate manner without resorting to stereotypes or cliches. Araki's use of a nonlinear narrative, frequent pop culture references, and experimental editing techniques are also noteworthy. These elements align with the new queer cinema's revisionist and experimental approach to narrative structure and filmic form. The Living End helped pave the way for a new era of queer cinema that continues to inspire filmmakers today, embodying the movement's commitment to authentic and challenging representations of LGBT experiences. Overall, The Living End is a significant work in the new queer cinema movement of the 1990s, exemplifying the movement's rejections of mainstream societal norms and its realistic portrayal of HIV or AIDS. Gus Van Sant's My Own Private Idaho explores the lives of two young sex workers, Mike and Scott, as they navigate their way through the streets of Portland, Oregon. The film utilizes a non-linear narrative to create a surreal tone which reflects the characters' experiences. The non-linear narrative makes the film feel dreamlike, which disassociates reality from fantasy, which is quite reflective of Mark's narcolepsy. My Private Idaho's title is taken from the opening lines of Shakespeare's Henry V, which explores themes of leadership, patriotism, and costs of war. My Own Private Idaho similarly explores power dynamics and struggles to define one's identity in the face of societal pressures. It is through Scott's character where this film reflects upon these themes. In Scott's arc, the film explores the complexities of desire and the search for acceptance. Scott comes from a wealthy family and struggles with his own sexuality and desires, using his privilege to distance himself. Idaho challenged traditional narrative and provided a voice for those who had been silenced by the mainstream society. My Private Idaho speaks to the desire of a particular movement when alternative lifestyles and marginalized identities were becoming more visible and for some more viable. Bronsky, 1998. The film's depiction of the complexities of queer desire and identity was a rejection of the strict binaries imposed by mainstream society and an affirmation of the multiplicity of the queer experience, playing a significant role in the emergence of the new queer movement, providing a powerful representation of these experiences. In conclusion, the new queer movement was a powerful call to arms which challenged heteronormative narratives and transformed queer representation in media. The movement's radical vision was realized through the revision, refashioning and rethinking of cinematic forms and genres to reflect the diversity and depth of the LGBT culture. The new queer cinema offered a powerful critique of societal norms and challenged conventional representations of queer identity and desire, which is still felt in cinema today.